Today I was just getting the bike ready for handing it back to the end of my PCP deal has come up. And I've decided kind of economically that it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to hold on to it. And it was kind of not emotional myself, kind of putting it back to the stock version as it was and kind of make it not mine anymore. Really, this bike, it took me to a lot of places, allowed me to ride in ways that kind of exceeded my ability, all the way through really. And I felt I was able to go further and further and down different roads with confidence, and it felt like I was improving as a rider throughout because of its off-road capability. It was really the KTM 790 Adventure. Did all the things I could ask for it and more. And just looking at the clips, I'm reminded how capable this thing really was. It's not just the engine or the chassis or any of that, but although that's obviously great, and the balance of weight and all of those things, but also like how you felt when you were riding it. It just made you feel, super capable and comfortable and confident and not stressed out. You're able to enjoy it because you're not thinking about dropping it necessarily, because it's not trying to do that on you. And the electronics as well. They really are very capable. The traction control, everybody says, turn that thing off and everything else. But really, well, especially on the road, off-road may be slightly different. But to be fair, I've left it in off-road mode as opposed to rally and, again, turning everything off. But the on-road, there was more than enough times where, I've ridden through winter and I've ridden, through serious wet and all that kind of thing. And the traction control, etc., saved me a bunch of times. Coming off a bad roundabout, it's really slippy on the exit, and you lose the back, and before you know it, the bike has done the majority of that recovery for you. I've got a little bit of experience and there's a bit of instinctual catch, but really there was a bunch of times really where the bike was the thing that saved it. And those electronics, that's the difference of being lying on the side of the road or having an accident where you maybe don't get back on for a while or whatever. Not that you're thinking of the worst case, but yeah, I would say, 5 to 10 times I was that much closer to those situations, and this bike specifically, and the 390 before it, as I had it, really does a good job of saving, especially when you're on off-road tires and so on as well, where it's kind of, the bike is potentially acting against you a little bit. And having a BMW now, which I'll talk about, and it's my news story, if you like, isn't as confidence inspiring. It's a great bike in all sorts of different ways, but it definitely you don't not feel as confident on it, and that's interesting. So really, it's been really, really solid, really. And it's that difference of you could think ahead of time about how much you can rely on the bike, or, obviously all the stories about KTMs, and it can get into your head a little bit, but it just never had for me. It starts up every single time. It does all these things on really difficult terrain. I've dropped it multiple times and I never really worried about that specifically. It's very rugged. And I think there's a bit of a false dichotomy sometimes, where if I had, it's obviously speculation if you like, but if I had a Suzuki and a V-Strom, or the Honda or something like that, and I was taking up really slippy stuff and maybe smashing it about a little bit, I don't know if it would pull through. There's kind of this thing of the KTMs are just designed well, and they take more abuse than they're given credit for by most people who ride them, and continue to go. I think it's probably in the class of Tenere, I suppose, although I've seen lots of people smash important bits off Tenere, and again, not quite so much the same, I would argue, around the 890, 790 platform at least. You see even Chris Birch, he smashed it off rocks all the time, and on it goes. I've been really impressed by it. But I'm in this situation where middle of PCP, the second-hand value has dropped it out on it. You know, if I was to hold on to it, I kind of wouldn't get my money back, I guess. So there's an aspect of, you know, I've paid for the depreciation, which is mostly normal on a lot of bikes, I kind of get to walk away and focus on a different bike, you know, my BMW instead. So yeah, the resale value isn't really there. And, you know, that's a community thing as much as a brand thing. You know, people just aren't, you know, willing maybe to take that risk. And mine is high-ish mileage as well as, you know, it's coming up on 11,000 miles, which isn't that high, but, you know, a lot of people consider it to be. So, you know, those opinions kind of matter. So, and yeah, obviously did quite a lot of upgrades to the bike. You know, really changing the protection from stock. You know, you have to do the hand guards and probably the bashplate, I would argue. I changed the kind of clutch pull with a different arm. I changed, what else did I change? A bunch of small things, but the biggest one was probably changing the suspension to the Norden suspension. Just so happened Lyndon Poskett, who's a kind of a friend of mine, he gave me his old Norden suspension, and I changed that in, and that actually did make quite a big difference. The stock 790, the newer ones, it's quite a hard suspension, like good, but when you're pushing it off-road, it just gets a bit bouncy and stuff, and gets a bit out of sorts. And the Norden is much softer and kind of cushier and longer travel and stuff, and you really do notice that. Straight away, and I was able to do more with it when it was changed, so that's cool. It does make the bike a little bit tall, but I've got a fairly good inseam or whatever, so it never really bothered me too much. Changed the seat as well, actually, to a rally seat, and that was good as well. So yeah, all those things, you know, combined, which is probably, you know, about £1,000 all in, which is a reasonable amount. But when you're starting at you know, 9 and bit or whatever it is, you know, it's not, it doesn't put it into crazy money territory overall, for what you're getting off road. So yeah, it's just a very good travel bike, and a very good do anything, go anywhere bike, I would argue. But again, you know, the second-hand values kind of dropped through, and that's forced my decision to kind of go down a different route. And so yeah, if you're buying a new KTM, I would say for a fair few of them, you know, it is a you're buying it to enjoy the bike. You know, it's not an investment as such, I guess. You know, you're not going to necessarily get great secondhand value on it. You might have some things to fix on it, but you know, you're buying it for the excitement that it brings, and the fact that it's got a bit of an edge to it, and all of those things, and it's just so capable for those things that it's been designed for, and yeah, you know, that's enough. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad to be letting it go, but yeah, not quite a two bike person, at least not two bikes as they are, and I think that for me, it probably isn't you know, a final goodbye to the brand. You know, not really. You know, a pause in that story maybe, and you know, if I was to look at one later that maybe was secondhand and was a good value and well looked after and low mileage, which you find a lot of bikes are, I would definitely reconsider a KTM again. As most people, I think, even the ones who have really bad experiences, you know, you hear them, you know, these people who have the old 990, something like that, and they hated it and wiring was bad and everything else, but you know, they're like, oh, I shouldn't let that bike go, and they get one in future again, and I can kind of see why. So yeah, a little bit sad to let it go, but on we go, and we'll see how the BMW R9T treats me in comparison. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you on another one.